In the grand glass atrium of a prestigious government building, the Gala sparkled under crystal chandeliers, illuminating the opulence of the evening with reflections on polished marble floors. Guests moved about like planets in a solar system of indulgence, their laughter melding with the gentle tunes of a string quartet positioned artfully near a cascading fountain. Ivy Warren, the unassuming receptionist of this elite venue, sat at a discreet marble desk, tasked with guiding the evening's A-list attendees to their seats, tables, or wherever their whims dictated. With her hair tied back in a neat bun and dressed in a simple yet professional black blouse and pencil skirt, Ivy managed to blend seamlessly into the elaborate tapestry of wealth and power. She endured the occasional dismissive remark with a polite nod, one guest even assuming her accent indicated a lack of comprehension. "Shouldn't you be passing hors d'oeuvres?" a particularly pompous man scoffed, and Ivy merely offered a tight-lipped smile, her practiced restraint unflinching. The Gala radiated a seamless facade of elegance until a faint mechanical ticking breached the symphony of artifice. Over the resonating clinks of champagne glasses, it started, a rhythmic, persistent sound emerging from beneath a table cloaked in velvet. Initially unnoticed amidst the din, the ticking grew insistent, echoing louder and faster, nudging the edges of guest awareness until murmurs shifted from idle talk to anxious inquiries. As their gazes collectively shifted, crisscrossing lines of anxiety, Ivy noticed security personnel caught in a moment of furrowed indecision, their eyes darting between each other rather than toward a solution. In the charged silence that ensued, the ticking was all that resonated clearly, marking time in an expanding sea of unvoiced fears. As the ticking persisted, its mechanical heart pulsing with unnerving regularity, panic began to bubble beneath the surface of the Gala's polished veneer. Guests, previously scattered in animated clusters, now moved like a school of startled fish, gathering near exits, stealing anxious glances toward the source of the ominous sound. The quartet faltered, their melody unraveling, and the laughter that had filled the air was replaced by a rising chorus of low murmurs and restless shuffling. Security guards hovered around their radios in a futile attempt to contact backup, their expressions betraying both uncertainty and the weight of responsibility. Many were young, inexperienced with situations escalating beyond standard protocol. They hesitated, unsure whether to escalate the evacuation or await further instructions. Meanwhile, organizers rushed around trying to maintain order, but their frantic energy only served to stoke the underlying hysteria. In this storm of confusion, Ivy Warren rose from her seat, the solitary still point in a churning sea. She picked up the intercom microphone with an air of quiet authority that belied her otherwise modest station. Her voice, calm and composed, sliced through the cacophony. "Ladies and gentlemen, for your safety, please proceed calmly to the nearest exit. Follow security instructions. Thank you for your cooperation." Her announcement initially met with a mix of relief from some and incredulity from others, notably event organizers who bristled visibly at a receptionist asserting control. Still, Ivy's collected demeanor was infectious, prompting a gradual wave of motion among the attendees toward the exits. Amidst the murmur of dismissive disbelief, she crossed the expanse of the atrium, walking toward the source of the ticking with a determination that parted onlookers like a ship's prow through water. Ignoring whispers and sideways glances, Ivy approached the table where the sound seemed loudest. Bending down, she illuminated the area beneath with a small flashlight, her movements deliberate and precise. The package was small, no bigger than a shoebox, wrapped innocuously with decorative paper that now seemed almost mockingly cheerful. As Ivy carefully pulled back the outer wrappings, she revealed a label mostly hidden beneath, "Timer, 2 minutes," accompanied by a small red warning symbol. The sight filled her with a surge of adrenaline, yet her hands remained steady. The external timer suggested sophistication, but not necessarily lethality. It was a bluff intended to create panic more than harm, a diversion in the most effective form. Ivy's intuition told her it was a sophisticated protest tool, designed to maximize attention without inflicting actual damage. With quick efficiency, she called out to a nearby security guard, whose expression of open skepticism faltered into respect as he listened to her request. "Call the bomb squad and clear the area further. It's a time distraction device, not an explosive," but we need confirmation from professionals, she instructed. Ignoring the chaotic flurry of camera flashes from guests documenting the drama, and her, Ivy focused solely on neutralizing the situation. Please, she said, standing and addressing the closest assembly of frightened eyes, continue toward the exits calmly. We have this under control. Methodically, she disconnected the visible wires from the timer, ensuring that no signal could trigger an unanticipated change, and gently relocated the entire device to a secure, isolated section outside the atrium. Heroically shielding worried bystanders from potential harm, she firmly addressed those trying to linger out of morbid curiosity, directing them to the perimeter set by security. Through her quick and confident action, Ivy had averted a stampede, the trajectory of fear redirected into a much more organized exodus. The unfolding evacuation, previously teetering on the edge of chaos, smoothed into an orderly stream, overseen by guards now acting with restored faith and focus. Many guests exited with astonishment lingering in their expressions, caught between gratitude and continued anxiety, yet comforted by the immediacy of relief Ivy had provided. With the immediate crisis mitigated, Ivy's handling of the situation captured collective attention. The dismissive glances that followed her earlier transformed into stares of awe and appreciation. The air of incredulity from event organizers melted under the dawning realization of her effectiveness as they watched her converse with security as naturally and authoritatively as any seasoned professional. Even as the ticking threat dissolved into memory, replaced by the gathering of police and eventual fire marshal teams, Ivy remained near the scene, assisting wherever her expertise could lend aid until awaited authorities took control. Her every move was marked by a quiet confidence and mastery that defied her seemingly humble position. As curiosity waned and genuine intrigue about Ivy surfaced, impressions within and outside the atrium solidified. The modest receptionist had performed a function beyond her outlined duties. Her intervention had not just directed attention, it had earned profound respect. In the aftermath, the atrium slowly returned to its former state, but with a weightier air, burdened not by disaster but by the realization of near tragedy averted. As Ivy stepped back to her desk, leaving authorities to sift through the pointers she'd provided, her actions resonated among those she had unceremoniously rescued. For a few indelible moments, among people ordinarily accustomed to ignoring or dismissing her presence, Ivy Warren had become the nucleus of their safety and the quiet architect of a deeply impressed silence that spoke louder than applause ever could. The echoes of the night's tension still lingered as Ivy Warren returned to her desk, finding a newfound respect in the eyes of those around her. Yet, as she settled back into the dim glow of her reception area, her mind drifted back to her past, revisiting years that seemed distant and almost unreal against the backdrop of her current modest existence. In those memories, Ivy was not the unassuming receptionist but a vibrant, quick-witted paramedic weaving through the chaos of an urban jungle. Her days were filled with the siren's wail harmonizing with rushing adrenaline, each call an opportunity to deploy her finely honed skills. In the bustling emergency rooms and the cramped interiors of speeding ambulances, Ivy was both calm and charismatic. Whether she was helping a young mother whose child had stopped breathing or providing bedside solace to accident victims, she did so with an unwavering dedication, her presence a balm to the frightened and hurting. Her proficiency in emergency response wasn't born of mere training, it was instinct forged through experience. Ivy often recalled one particular winter night, out in the biting cold, when her quick decision-making had saved a family trapped in a car slowly submerging into an icy pond. A moment of triumph forever laced with the sound of cracking ice underfoot and the frozen grip of water. Yet despite her competence and zeal, Ivy's life took an unexpected turn one rainy afternoon. While responding to a call about a major traffic pileup, a speeding vehicle, unseen amidst pouring rain and flashing lights, collided with her ambulance. The accident left her with a serious shoulder injury that complicated her mobility, the very asset central to her work as a paramedic. The recovery was slow, physically and emotionally arduous, compounded by the painful realization that her body might never fully recover to maintain the frantic pace of her career. After months of grueling physical therapy and procedures that restored much but not all of her former strength, Ivy faced a difficult decision. The pride and fulfillment she once derived from her role were shadowed by the weight of forced resignation. With the advice but minimal support from doctors and colleagues, she chose to step away from the profession. This transition was not merely a shift in employment but a deeper upheaval of identity. Stripped suddenly of her uniform, her purpose felt diminished, her heart often heavy with an unspoken grief. But Ivy had others counting on her, specifically her young daughter, Lily, to whom she was mother, teacher, and unwavering support. As a single parent, Ivy quickly realized she would need to reinvent herself for her daughter's sake. Out of necessity, Ivy took up the role at the government building's reception, a quieter environment where she could be present for Lily while accommodating her rehabilitation. It was a means to an end, allowing her to provide for Lily while maintaining some semblance of professional involvement, even if behind a desk. Despite a change of scene, Ivy's passion for helping others did not wane. Resilient as ever, she began conducting basic first aid workshops within her community, imparting vital skills she deemed fundamental, especially to young parents who clung to her words with trusting attentiveness. To her neighbors and friends, Ivy became a quiet pillar, recognized not by uniforms or medals but by the gratefulness of a community reassured by her continuous presence. Volunteering further cemented her connection to people, always ready to share a method for extending help beyond herself. Neighborhood children often found their way under her wings, not just for teaching CPR or understanding emergencies but for trusted supervision and heartfelt care, a testament to her enduring nurturing spirit. Although Ivy bore her new circumstances with grace, memories of the bustling hospital halls and the thrill of immediate intervention remained, reminders of a past life vibrant in its challenges and unsaid glories. It was an odd comfort to find those skills again on a night that began with a ticking box rather than a screeching siren, the stark realization that her capabilities were neither lost nor diminished, only paused. In a silent acknowledgement of the past, Ivy understood that through adaptation, she had sharpened those skills, wound them into the fabric of every role she undertook, regardless of outward simplicity or perceived insignificance by others. Back in the present, with the Gala no longer under imminent threat, Ivy felt her limbs relax into the familiar rhythm of dusk settling. It was evening again, and safely so. She glanced at passing clusters of guests, their conversations now less fraught, and realized clarity amidst the recollections, an appreciation for how she had arrived here, for the fortitude fueling her decisions, and for the quiet impact unshackled from the sirens. As Ivy turned her attention once more to her modest post at the reception desk, it was with a heart emboldened by the realization that she remained Ivy Warren, steadfast, courageous, and wholly herself, whether in the rush of an ambulance or the quietude of a single clicking keyboard. Amidst everything she'd lost and subsequently discovered anew, the fundamental truth endured: she was, and always would be, ready for the next call to courage. As the initial shock from the Gala began to subside, an insightful calm replaced the panic. The guests, now safely outside, found themselves enveloped by the brisk night air, their earlier trepidation giving way to a cautious camaraderie. Conversations shifted from the mundane to the extraordinary, centered upon the swift actions of a woman many had barely noticed upon arrival. Within the fragmented groups, murmurs of gratitude and astonishment clustered around Ivy Warren's name. Those who had witnessed the event firsthand recounted with vivid fascination the calm with which she approached the ticking package, each retelling heightening the drama of the moment and their admiration for her bravery. Any initial doubts about the gravity of her intervention faded as Ivy's composure under pressure was recounted time and again. As security personnel and event organizers gathered to take stock, news teams arrived on the scene, lured by the electric buzz of an untold story radiating through social media. Cell phones proliferated the unexpected heroism of the Gala evening, short video clips capturing Ivy's brave stroll toward the unknown, voices narrating the scene with a mixture of fear and relief. Within moments, hashtags emerged, forever pairing Ivy's name with courage in the digital landscape. Nearby, Ivy stood amidst a once panicked crowd now unified by shared relief. As onlookers and guests cautiously approached her, she was met with gestures of thanks and appreciation. Their initial indifference transformed into sincere gratitude, infusing Ivy with a warmth that momentarily eclipsed her usual state of modest reserve. Handshakes turned to smile-encased thank yous, and the quiet nods mirrored her own diligence returned manifold. Among the guests, a high-ranking official, a figure whose presence seemed definitive of the evening's importance, stepped forward. With a steady hand, he addressed the crowd, recognizing Ivy's swift intervention as not just heroic but essential to the evening's resolution, ensuring the safety of every attendee. His words were laced with the authoritative gravity of acknowledgement, turning private thankfulness into public recognition. As the waves of praise settled, Ivy's co-workers began to see her not merely as the quiet receptionist behind a desk but as a capable force deserving of new regard. The head of security, who had earlier been too preoccupied to acknowledge her potential fully, approached with commendation. "You're not just a receptionist, Ivy. You're a hero," he remarked, his tone both apologetic and awed. In the aftermath, reporters eagerly sought Ivy's story, their cameras flashing and pens poised as an impromptu interview unfolded. Her past as a paramedic quickly surfaced, sparked by photographs from old articles that tech-savvy journalists uncovered. Images of Ivy in her paramedic uniform, sleeves rolled and eyes steady, surfaced online alongside glowing accolades from past colleagues and patients alike. Ivy handled the attention with an understated dignity, diverting excessive praise by emphasizing the critical role of teamwork and the trained security who complemented her actions. Still, she acknowledged the role of her paramedic background in informing her calm and effective response, a nod to her past as vital to understanding her present. With each new retelling, Ivy's actions resonated on a broader stage. What began as whispers among gala attendees took viral wings, permeating news channels and talk shows as an exemplar of unpredicted valor. Her competence in crisis shed a nuanced light upon the ostensibly mundane face of those we often overlook: receptionists, support staff, anyone whose contributions hidden behind the facade of simplicity underscored societal intersections of capability and expectation. Back at work, Ivy's surroundings reflected this newfound status. Co-workers went out of their way to engage her directly in conversations that previously bypassed her entirely. There were coffee cups left on her desk with scribbled notes of admiration, and post-it memos appeared, thanking her for reminding everyone of the power of quiet conviction and readiness. More profoundly, Ivy noticed how the very architecture of their interactions shifted, as guests now acknowledged her not only as a polite face of hospitality but also as an embodiment of strength and keen intellect. She found comfort in the small exchanges, companionship wrapped in respect and rendered visible through action. Meanwhile, Ivy's personal life saw encouraging changes, influences reaching beyond her day-to-day work. Parents approached her at community events, eyes lighting with recognition as they expressed relief and admiration, subtly renewed respect woven into their exchanges. Ivy relished these warmer connections, finding a healing power in understanding that her past had never fully eluded her, rather, it was reimagined through each life she touched anew. Even Lily, her young daughter, sensed the shift in her mother, less in outward appearance and more inherent presence. She pranced with newfound pride, her peers treating her differently now, aware of Ivy Warren the hero and intrigued by what being her daughter entailed. Amidst recounting bedtime stories, Lily would often gravitate to her mother's tale, lacing it into fantasies populated by real-life heroes who took shape under night skies dotted with distant, brave stars. Through those transformative weeks, the city embraced Ivy not only as a hero but also as a catalyst for broader understanding of dormant potentials harbored within each community. Her face, momentarily prominent across newsprint and television screens, sparked conversations about recognition and the unsung capabilities intrinsic to ordinary lives awaiting extraordinary purpose. In this renewed spotlight, Ivy found solace, a reassurance that while much had changed because of a singular moment, the fundamental essence of who she was, and what she could accomplish, had always known the way. Her journey, rather than a mere pivot, reflected a continuous line of quiet resilience and readiness to meet the future with uncurbed strength, shielded no longer by obscurity but illuminated by an unfaltering resolve. Weeks had passed since the gala, yet the echo of that transformative night continued to resonate in Ivy Warren's life. The spotlight that had temporarily settled on her began to fade into the background, but the changes it brought remained vivid and enduring. One morning, as Ivy settled at her desk, her routine suddenly took an unexpected turn. A crisply sealed envelope lay waiting for her, its heavyweight stationery embossed with the city's official crest. Intrigued, she opened it to reveal a letter from the city's Emergency Services Commissioner, an authoritative figure whose acknowledgement reached Ivy in the intimacy of her station. The letter contained a formal invitation to join an elite fast-track program, specifically crafted to recertify seasoned professionals like Ivy, who had previously been waylaid by injury or circumstance. It was an extraordinary opportunity tailored with understanding and recognition of her unique journey and skills, one that promised to bridge the gap between her past and the future she had feared was irrevocably lost. The prospect of returning to her former realm, now buttressed by new insights and while donning a revitalized perspective, was as exhilarating as it was daunting. The familiar pull of old aspirations ignited within Ivy, dancing alongside the flicker of self-doubt that had kept her bound to the safety of smaller actions. The balance between her existing responsibilities and a potential reclamation of old glories hovered delicately in her mind. Later that evening, as she sat with her daughter Lily over dinner, the conversation naturally drifted toward the letter. Lily, now an inquisitive force, showed an intrigue that both grounded and uplifted Ivy. Aware of her mother's internal struggle, Lily asked in her soft voice, "Does this mean you'll be saving people again, Mom?" Ivy was struck by the simple beauty of her daughter's understanding. Here was a youthful lens unclouded by doubt or the weight of the past. "Perhaps," she replied thoughtfully, "but it would also mean learning new things and teaching others how to help, making our world a little safer with each lesson." "How does that sound?" Lily's eyes shone with enthusiasm, clapping her hands together. "Like having a superhero right at home," she declared, infusing Ivy with a warmth that dispelled some of her lingering hesitations. It was a vital reminder that returning to her calling, should she choose to embrace it, held significance beyond her and formed a reflection in the world her daughter was beginning to grasp. Bolstered by Lily's infectious excitement, Ivy spent the following days contemplating the path laid out before her. The support within her community and from former colleagues came in whispers of encouragement and nods of approval, urging her toward the program while respecting her deliberation. As she processed the decision, Ivy revisited her experience at the gala, not merely an isolated moment but a symphony of choice and competence blending together into an indelible mark on her life's tapestry. The inertia of previous fear began to unravel, supplanted by a deep-seated conviction that the skills and courage she'd once honed remained vibrant and needed a stage broader than they'd been given of late. Soon, driven by a fresh resolve nurtured by community appreciation and her daughter's unshakable faith, Ivy signed the papers that would confirm her participation in the paramedic recertification program. Almost ceremoniously, she stood before the framework of her decision with a quiet victory for the power to redefine oneself not through the bounds of limitations but through the boundless embrace of opportunity. On the first day of her re-engagement with emergency services, Ivy donned the newly tailored paramedic jacket. The feel of its fabric was both familiar and uniquely invigorating, signifying not a rewind to the old but an affirmative continuation into the new. At the training center, Ivy was greeted with warm welcomes and intrinsic respect. Trained eyes acknowledged her not for the vestiges of fame from recent events but for the depth of experience subtly enhancing her presence. Among both fresh faces and veteran colleagues, she found herself as both a learner and a teacher, exchanging distilled wisdom across generations of caregivers bound by shared purpose. Each day presented challenges that refined and reaffirmed her decision. She relished the proximity of familiar scenes interwoven with innovations, her role evolving with the program's intricate dance between formal instruction and lived reality. As Ivy imparted her knowledge, she discovered the enriching satisfaction of contributing not solely to immediate action but to belief systems and practices that would ripple outward. Her life outside the program also flourished. At home, Lily continued to embrace the narrative of her mother's journey, proudly recounting Ivy's valor at the gala with tangible excitement to friends and teachers. Ivy's role as a neighbor and community member deepened, the acknowledgement she received intricately linked to who she had been and who she was becoming. Toward the completion of this season of growth, Ivy understood that the ticking package at the gala was symbolic, a catalyst for change that propelled her forward, allowing her to harmonize her past achievements with the pathways of the present. Reflecting on these events, Ivy saw in herself the culmination of courage fueled by undying passion and perseverance. She had transitioned from a night of palpable fear to days lit with newfound purpose, rediscovering a depth of identity that had always existed but now gleamed with polished resilience and sisterhood among similarly driven souls. In the gentle light of morning, Ivy stood with Lily at the edge of their small garden, a tangible microcosm of nurturing potential. With her arms encircling her daughter's frame, Ivy saw with clarity not just her surroundings but possibility, a reminder that no circumstances, however altering, could diminish her spirit forged in quiet fortitude and readiness. And with the sun climbing over the horizon, Ivy Warren, ever resilient and no longer tethered to fear or doubt, stepped confidently into her reimagined role, assured in her place among those whose actions, measured in both scope and impact, wove strength and hope into the very fabric of everyday life.